Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and welcome to Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, the upcoming Avatar game from Massive Entertainment published by Ubisoft. This is essentially a true AAA game developed by some seasoned devs for that Avatar universe for the first time. These devs are people who made both Division 1 and 2 with what looks to be an incredibly satisfying and immersive experience for an Avatar fan, but is it not simply an Avatar skinned Far Cry? Well, we've been looking into the game and I have to admit, all three of us are interested to try it, and so we might be making some videos about it. There's more depth to the world and the designs of the game than expected, like say the sound and visuals seem incredible. So if you're to the vibe of that, it's definitely going to be something to watch. But there's also fair and valid concerns about it being a bit of a Far Cry feeling game. Everything outside the combat has me arguing against that, but the combat of the game itself is where I'm most concerned. So today I'm sharing the important details of what I've learned looking into the game, from the trailers to also hands-on footage of different press people who recently played the game at an event in Sweden. So with all that said, here's what you need to know about the upcoming Avatar game and my thoughts about it all. Let's open the video with an important topic, the context as how the game works and its relevance to the main story told by the films. The game basically begins with a group of navi who are abducted by humans when they're young. These children are then trained in human ways, centered of course around human warfare. But considering how connected to nature navi are, the very fact that they're held in captivity during this training means they're completely cut off from the natural world and their natural life cycle. In the first film, the navi fight against the humans to retake the planet and force out the humans, at which point the humans start eliminating these navi captives in our story and world. But somehow you survive and escape, avoiding the conflict by going into cryo sleep. Moments later you wake up, except the real world has progressed of course, and so a lot of time has passed. Years and years, and so you're let loose essentially within the same events of the second film. However, you're this weird half human, half navi thing. You know next to nothing about the navi world and order, how it should function, the culture and all that. So it's a pretty clever way to introduce someone completely new to this world and story. And even though you're playing as a navi, you're playing as one that knows nothing about the navi world. So while you learn everything, your character is doing the same thing, going hand in hand to make you feel like you are that character. Ultimately, your goal will be to fight the return of the humans, though it'll be within its own separate lands and story compared to the second film, which is elsewhere. That's in a different region of the planet, while we're in the sort of western frontier. This basically gives the devs the perfect ground to create new areas, places to explore in the right theme, but not like a one-for-one recreation. It also means they can add completely new characters, stories, new navi clans and so on. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is this going to be an Avatar skinned Far Cry? Well, it's undeniable that the basis of the gameplay is built off that concept, which, you know, I like, but I find it a bit repetitive after not that long. Something definitely feels different here though. There's a clear step away from the formulaic Ubisoft design, which is important. If they don't do something fresh with their games, you know, I just don't think it looks good for Ubisoft. But take a look at the UI in this case. I think it says a lot. Ubisoft's classic, here's 100 things on your screen, all over your compass, your minimap, glowing through the walls, a voice telling you every 10 seconds to go do X or Y, basically taking away any mystery to the game. Here, Avatar has pretty minimal UI, and in lots of footage I've seen sparse examples of it. A health bar, maybe like a mana or stamina, a compass that you can track some things with, and there's some sort of sense mode that allows you to see things with different outlines and be reminded of the current task when you're doing that. Apparently there's going to be an exploration mode where you basically remove most of the UI and it's much more based on your senses, which also sounds good. The basic movement of the game seems very cool. The terrain and climbing over it is going to be interesting, whether you're in the water, trees, sky islands, mountains and so on. But you can walk, sprint, slide around, do a sort of super jump or a faster double jump. But there's also lots of things in the terrain, meaning the plants, to help you get around. Lots of bouncing plants that work like boost pads or lift vines that you grab onto and zoom up. If you jump off a cliff or from high up, you'll sort of skydive, reminding me like of Tears of the Kingdom. But where the movement seems to most shine is the flying or mounted movement, specifically with the banshee. You'll need to form an actual bond with it that should be important to the character and story, rather than running up to every animal and connecting your hair USB and flying off. The connections and nature and how you interact with it will matter. But when you are flying on a banshee, you'll be able to boost around and barrel roll to avoid projectiles, hover on the spot to fight, dive around and land wherever you like. You can free look while flying in a direction, allowing you to fight and move on the back of your mount at the same time. Maybe you hold in place to hover to more accurately shoot at the enemies, though it's probably a bad idea to do that for too long since you'd probably be an easy target. So it's going to be an important part of the gameplay. Actively flying, whether you're exploring, walking around, mid-combat or not. You can drop off the mount and fly through the air at any point yourself, falling and fighting, and then call back the mount to pick you up before you splat on the ground. So it's very involved and pretty different. Apparently you can fly literally anywhere. There's not like specific locations, it's wherever, whenever. The connection with the animal itself is going to be important. They will be upgradable with their own skill tree, gearable with its own items, customizable, all that stuff. So there's going to be some serious changes to the flow of exploration compared to, say, Far Cry, and your interaction with the world and the forms of combat you see. But that doesn't change the fact that you will be fighting enemies at outposts, clearing them out, over and over in different ways. So there's clear Far Cry elements to the gameplay loop, but it's definitely a fresh theme with a lot of different stuff to it. We should be exploring 3 main regions with the opening of the game. That's the open plains, the dark swamp, and the rainforest, so hopefully there's going to be big, lots of variety areas to go through. Sadly, it's hard to showcase in a video like this, but the other topic I want to talk about is audio. The people that have played the game in these early access stuff are singing its praises, and it seems to be a major role in the game. They've created these massive amounts of unique audio. Apparently there's been 2 years of development just for audio. So it works based on your position from everything, like plants to people, buildings, all based on positional audio. And it's all happening at once to create what is a very genuine sounding soundscape. You'll hear a bird singing in a tree, right? And then you can turn and you hear it in front of you and you'll literally see the bird singing. Instead of a pre-recorded bird that's playing on loop every now and then wherever you are in a forest, it's much more detailed because you can scare away that bird and you'll hear it go away and stop singing. For example, something that was mentioned a few times by a bunch of different people is when they fired a human gun, all the animals left the area, they ran away. So suddenly there was almost silence after that, which sounds quite eerie. So details of this nature is something I definitely appreciate in games like this. If they get the immersive feel of this game right, which they seem to have done that, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. Visually, I mean, it's stunning. There's a massive amount of visual variety, whether you're day or night, the area or regions you're in, whether it's sun or rain, even the plants reacting to you going near them or touching them. They've worked very hard to make the world seem real, and I think that's a big selling point for the gameplay more than the combat actually is. Before we talk about combat though, we need to talk about gathering and existing in this world because it's weirdly important. The classic Far Cry approach of gathering 100 plants of every kind, the hides of animals, the insane amount of junk gathering that you would do in a Ubisoft game in general, well, they're seemingly doing away with that concept. For the people who were there at that hands-on experience, they were told time and time again that they're doing quality over quantity for that type of stuff. They want the gathering to feel more important and less generic. Even though you're still gathering plants or animal hides or parts, whatever, you're going to be doing it in a bit of a different way apparently. We'll use our senses to reveal, say, gatherable plants. And as we go up to them and cut them, we do a little mini game. You need to look at the plant to understand how to actually gather it, and using your sticks and the haptic feedback of a PlayStation 5 controller, you feel the angle it needs to come out from and how much force you actually need to use so that you don't damage and waste the plant. Some plants are going to be really hard to find and rare, and in many cases you need the right weather conditions and environment to actually get a high quality version of something. So as you're going through the world, you want to stop and look at the plants to learn about them, to find details about them so you can track them later and know when to actually harvest them. With animals, you'll see their organs and weak spots during combat, ideal places to attack them without actually ruining the materials. You want to use the bows rather than, say, guns, because the guns are just going to absolutely shred the bodies of these animals, making their parts useless. And when it comes to how much you actually do this stuff, I guess it's going to be up to you, of course, but the quality of the gathering matters. If you are gathering the plants at the right time, right location, all that, getting the best quality, you end up using this stuff in cooking much more effectively. Not only is the quality of the food a lot better, giving you much better buffs for the types of playstyles you're doing, but also you'll have to gather less and cook less because you've put the effort in to gather right. Interestingly, pollution will also play an important role here. You'll see areas where the nature is sapped and unhealthy, off-colored or just dying. Water will literally be undrinkable and you might see animals go and try it and then just die. In these areas, you know that humans are nearby. You'll encounter patrols of humans doing different missions and maybe you'll interrupt them. You can find animals with trackers implanted in them that you can help them remove. This type of stuff only occurs when a human base is nearby though, that's sort of mining and gathering the resources and therefore, polluting the area. So you can go and take down these locations, which are clearly outposts inspired by Far Cry design, and by defeating them, you restore the natural order. The land will actually begin to function again, healing over the human influence and reclaiming it, which is a nice detail. That results in animals actually living in the area again, as also plants will begin to grow and harvest there too. But now let's talk about an important aspect of the game, which does seem very familiar to Ubisoft and Far Cry design, we're talking about the combat at last, which I am very mixed on. Either you're going to stealth in a standard way or fight directly, but whatever you're doing, you'll often be using your sense mode, which allows you to work out where enemies are, hear them, and highlight them in different colors. With better focus, you're able to see colored highlights that show their weaknesses of what you're actually fighting. Like I said, with animals, you'll see their organs, which are exposed at different times during combat, but say with the machines the humans are using, say the mechs, they have controls and engines, or the literal human within that you can directly attack. If they're exposed, you can kill the human and instantly take down the mech, or maybe you send an arrow into a vent and cause a lot of malfunctions. Apparently the sound design is going to be relevant to this too, to help you work out where enemies are in relation to you, but also make the weapons feel satisfying and meaty. The bow is going to be surprisingly effective compared to the guns, where you're firing a single shot that's going to deal real damage, but must be precisely aimed and thought about, since it's far from fast to use if you're using like the long or heavy, where human weapons are going to be more loud, spray and pray design, because you can't actually like ADS and aim down them. You have to point fire or hip fire completely, which sounds pretty bad to me. I guess they're forcing the idea of kind of randomness when you're using these guns, but I still don't like it. Contextually, the story is these Navi, the one you're playing, are trained to use it, so they should be able to properly use them. Anyway, you're not going to be limited to just one bow with the Navi weapons. You can swap between a short bow, long bow, or heavy bow for the different purposes, basically fast firing, long range firing, or general purpose. Each bow uses different arrows, so there's different options you'll have, and you'll have throwables, so you might find yourself taping grenades to an arrowhead or something like that. On the other hand, there's the 3 human weapon types that we've seen, and that seems like barely any to me. The assault rifle, RPG, and the shotgun. Pretty tame standard picks. And like I said, you can't even use these guns properly, hip or point fire, that's it. The human weapons seem much less interesting by comparison and aren't like customizable or anything it would seem. And yeah, the human weapons are loud, there's no stealth with those, the bows you'll have to use for stealth. So yeah, I do think this is the weakest part of the gameplay, combat. I've been wondering, where are the other aspects of Navi combat? You know, that guerrilla warfare. Where are the traps, the melee combat? Things like animal handling to use an animal help you fight or distract in a combat situation. There's a lot of options with stuff like that. This combat seems a lot more shallow than I expected, where everything else around the game seems deeper and more interesting than I thought it would be. I mean, we've seen some glances of skill trees and upgrade options. We've only seen bits of the game, so maybe there's hope for more variety and depth of the combat, but I'm not sure. Now, one final feature that might really impact the game is the fact that it allows for 2-player online co-op, which should massively change the way not just combat but the whole thing works. It surprised me a lot to hear that's possible, since you'll be able to do the story and all other stuff together, but we've seen no gameplay showcases of that to actually judge how it works and how it truly impacts things. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that brings us to the conclusion. For me, this looks to be an incredible visual and audio experience, something that's definitely going to appeal to an Avatar fan that's looking for an immersive experience. If, on the other hand, the theme and setting and story of the game doesn't really draw you in, I am concerned it's probably not for you. The combat doesn't seem to be a distinct selling point, but the gameplay around and outside of that, leading into it, actually seems to be the biggest draw. Like I said, they've said so many times they're doing a quality of a quantity theme, and that seems to be in everything but the combat. Still, it does seem like a step away from the more formulaic design of Ubisoft. The question is it big enough of a step away? To me, the setting and story and the immersive experience, that's going to carry the game, and I am interested to see if they can pull that off. Let us know what you think of the game so far, if I've missed anything we should have included, but until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.